Welcome to Deep Fear, where your darkest nightmares turn real. Tonight's story may just keep you awake, so let's start the video. And don't forget to subscribe. The road to Ash Hollow wasn't on any GPS. When Darren Matthews pulled over on the shoulder to check his phone, the screen had gone blank. Not black, blank, as if someone had wiped it clean. His dashboard clock was frozen at 3:17 a.m., though he'd been driving for over an hour. The trees surrounding him didn't seem to move, didn't seem to breathe. They just stood there, looming, like watchers. He tapped the windshield. Fog. Dense, slow-moving, unnatural. He hadn't seen another car in over 30 miles. Only that faded green sign he passed 5 minutes ago. Ash Hollow. 2 miles. It had looked freshly painted. Odd for a town supposedly abandoned since 1996. A low hum echoed from somewhere deep in the forest, a sound that seemed both electronic and animal, like a distant radio static mixed with a growl. Darren stiffened. He glanced in the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just white. Solid, consuming white. "Screw this," he muttered, shifting the car back into drive. He was headed to Ash Hollow because of a story, a favor, really. His cousin Rebecca, a freelance journalist, had gone missing after following a lead about the Fog Town. Last message she'd sent him was a photo of an old farmhouse with its windows glowing white from within, and a caption, "It's not abandoned, and it's not empty." That was 3 nights ago. The police didn't care, so Darren came himself. As he approached the town, the fog thickened. Not like mist, but like something alive. It moved as if it were breathing in slow rhythms, curling around trees and signs like fingers. The entrance to the town was marked by 2 rusted lampposts, still flickering with dying bulbs. Beyond that, the street was lined with dark houses. Porches sagged. Windows stared. Lawns were overgrown. He parked in front of the first house that didn't look like it might collapse. That's when he saw it. In the window of the second floor, a woman, standing still, backlit by white light, not moving, just watching. Darren blinked. She was gone. He looked again. The curtain swayed slowly. Darren stepped out of the car, boots crunching on loose gravel. The air was thick, not just with fog, but with silence. A silence that felt wrong. No insects, no wind, no nightbirds. The only sound was his own breathing and the distant tick, tick, tick of something metallic cooling down inside the engine. The house across the street, the one where he'd seen the woman, remained still. The curtains no longer moved, but he knew what he saw. Or at least, what he thought he saw. He crossed the street slowly. The house loomed larger the closer he got. Its siding was a sickly gray, peeling like dry skin. One of the steps up the porch cracked under his foot. Another groaned like it might give way. He reached the door. It was open, only a sliver, but open. "Hello?" he called out. No answer. His flashlight flickered on. The beam cut through the dust hanging in the air like it had weight. The walls were lined with old photographs, families frozen in time, smiles wide, eyes glassy. Except one was wrong. Darren moved closer. It was a wedding photo. Black and white. The couple smiled brightly, but both of their faces were scratched out. Deep cuts, like someone had taken a knife to the glass over and over. There were dozens of these, all mutilated, all with no eyes. He turned to leave, heart pounding, when he heard it. A creak upstairs, software deliberate, followed by a faint voice. "You shouldn't be here." He hesitated, but something pulled him forward. Not curiosity, something else. Like a thread tugging his mind forward even when every part of his body screamed run. The staircase was narrow, claustrophobic. The railing was sticky to the touch. Halfway up, he stopped and turned off his flashlight. There, that light again. Faint, glowing through a crack under the upstairs bedroom door. He took a deep breath, reached for the knob. It was warm. Too warm. The door creaked open, slowly, as if the house itself didn't want it opened too fast. Inside, an old bedroom, dust covering every surface, a crib in the corner, and a figure sitting on the edge of the bed. A woman. Still, hair hanging over her face like a curtain of black vines. "Rebecca?" Darren whispered. The woman didn't move. Then, she looked up. Eyes milky white, skin bloated and gray. But worse than that. He knew that face. It was Rebecca. But her mouth moved in reverse, like a film playing backward. Her lips curled back unnaturally as she whispered something that made Darren's blood freeze. "She's wearing my skin." And then she screamed, not with a human voice, but with a sound like every window in the house shattered at once. Darren bolted, down the stairs, through the front door. The fog had thickened outside, so dense it was like running into a wall of milk. He couldn't see more than a few feet in any direction. His car was gone. Gone. Only his boot prints remained, leading to an empty patch of road. No, 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 no! Behind him, the house creaked again. He turned. It was different now. The windows were boarded up. The porch collapsed. A condemned sign swung from one nail, as if no one had lived there for decades, as if no one had been watching from the window, as if the house itself had been waiting. For him. Darren stumbled backward into the fog. His breath clouded the air as if the mist was trying to crawl inside him. His flashlight barely penetrated the white. He turned in every direction, nothing but shapes in the haze. Trees, street signs, mailboxes, all warped and whispering. Then he saw something move, out near the fields at the edge of town. Not fast, not loud, but undeniably human-shaped. He crept forward, drawn again by something he couldn't name. The fog parted just enough for him to see a scarecrow standing in the middle of a dead cornfield, arms out, hat sagging, a noose around its neck. It was made of cloth and wood, but its head was breathing, softly rising and falling. Its stitched mouth twitched. A fly crawled across one glassy human eye. It was alive. And then it turned its head, snapping sounds, like dry twigs breaking under flesh. "Rebecca," it whispered. Darren ran. He didn't know where he was going, but his legs carried him past crumbling gas stations and collapsed fences until he found what looked like a general store. The windows were broken. A broken neon "open" sign buzzed quietly in the corner. Inside, it smelled of mold and iron, like blood. He closed the door behind him and leaned against the counter, catching his breath. Shelves stood empty. The fridge units hummed, though nothing was plugged in. He noticed an old corkboard near the back wall. Pinned to it was a map of the town, faded and water-damaged, labeled with streets and building names. But something was off. Red lines were drawn through certain places, deep scratches in the paper. And where the general store was marked, someone had written, "Taken, 3:17 a.m." That time again. The exact moment his dashboard clock froze. The same time his cousin disappeared. The same hour the woman's scream shattered the air. He stepped back, and something crunched under his foot. A photo. Burnt around the edges, but still visible. Rebecca standing in front of the town church, smiling. But her shadow, was twisted, stretched across the wall behind her like antlers. Suddenly, the lights flickered. He wasn't alone. He raised the flashlight again, heart hammering. It flickered once, twice, and there she was, standing between two broken shelves, the same figure he saw before. Only now, her skin was wrong, like someone had taken it off, boiled it, and then forced it back on. It dripped, it pulsed, it moved. "Who are you?" Darren asked, barely whispering. The thing tilted its head, and in Rebecca's voice, it spoke. "You brought her with you." Darren backed away slowly, the flashlight beam quivering. "I brought who?" The figure twitched, shoulders popping, arms stretching at unnatural angles, and it shrieked, "You said her name!" Suddenly, all the light in the store died. The door slammed shut. The map on the wall caught fire, spreading fast, without heat or smoke. In the flickering glow, Darren saw the shelves begin to melt, and from the floor, the fog rose again, this time from inside the building. Something was trying to pull its way through. The fog seemed to pulse inside the general store. It wasn't drifting anymore. It was rising, like breath from something underneath the floorboards. Darren backed toward the exit, reaching blindly for the doorknob. It turned. The outside world was different again. The fog outside was darker than before, grayer, almost solid. The buildings looked melted, sagging inward like they were grieving. And yet, the church steeple at the end of the road stood tall, sharp, like a splinter tearing through the sky. No cross, no bell, just a silhouette against the rolling clouds. "She's there," Darren muttered to himself, not sure how he knew. He walked slowly, every step crunching on shattered glass and soggy leaves. Along the way, street signs had changed. Where it once said Maple Street now read Bone Road, and under that, painted in what looked like dried blood, "You should have left her buried." The church doors were ajar. They groaned when Darren pushed them open. The inside smelled of wet stone and mildew. Pews were shattered. The stained glass windows were all blacked out, not broken, just painted over, like someone was trying to hide something on the other side. At the front of the church, where the altar should be, there was a hole. A massive circular opening cut directly into the stone floor. Old, rotting boards surrounded it like a broken well. He stepped closer and looked down. Blackness, total and perfect. But then, movement. He saw her again. Rebecca, at the bottom, eyes glowing faintly, her mouth opening and closing, whispering something Darren couldn't hear. "Rebecca!" he shouted. "I'm here!" Her head tilted, but not toward him, toward something else in the dark behind her. A second set of eyes appeared, larger, too high off the ground to be human. Then a third set, then many. Dozens of glowing white orbs opening in the dark like stars being born. Something was down there, watching, breathing, waiting. Then the whisper came again, this time inside his head. "Jump, or she stays here." He didn't think. He just moved. Darren leapt into the hole. The air rushed past him, then stopped, like he was suspended. No wind, no bottom. Then he landed, softly, on wet stone. The air smelled of rotting earth and something chemical, like formaldehyde. The chamber was massive. The ceiling arched with twisted roots and veins. Old pews, half submerged in black mud, lined the sides. Candlelight flickered from unseen sources, casting shadows that danced too deliberately to be random. And at the far end, a massive shape, wrapped in fog, wrapped in skin, not human skin, something larger. It moved in slow, tidal waves. From inside, something pulsed, glowing faintly red with each beat. Darren heard chanting, low, guttural, not in English. He turned a corner, and there she was, Rebecca, nailed to a stone slab, eyes wide open, still alive. but her skin was pulled tight, like it was being held on by string. "Darren," she croaked. "It's still wearing me." From the ceiling, a voice dripped down like water through rock. She opened the fog when she said its name, and now, you've brought it something new. The voice was neither male nor female. It was thick, like smoke, and layered, as if several mouths were speaking at once. She tore the veil when she called to the Hollow, and now the Hollow has remembered itself. Darren stepped closer to Rebecca, his boots sinking into the black mud. Her body was trembling, barely held together by thin strands of skin that seemed stitched from within. Like something inside her was trying to wear her, not the other way around. "I'm going to get you out of here," he whispered, but her eyes widened in terror. "Number, you can't take me back. I'm not just me anymore." From behind her slab, the fog surged upward, coiling into a humanoid shape. Its face was a void, no eyes, no mouth, but still, it spoke. She gave her name to the fog, and so the fog gave her a purpose. The ground shook beneath Darren's feet. All around the chamber, hundreds of small holes in the walls opened, and from them, bones began to slide out. Not human bones, long, twisted, some with extra joints, others with teeth. They built themselves into figures, skeletons made from something older than people. "This is what lies beneath," the voice said. "This is what the town was built to forget." Darren looked around the stone chamber. Now that his eyes had adjusted, he realized the walls were carved, covered in ancient markings, spirals, and runes. Many looked almost Celtic or tribal, but some resembled modern letters, scratched in panic. "Don't listen. Don't dig. Don't follow the child. She's already dead." He turned back to Rebecca, whose skin was now writhing, as if tiny movements were happening just below the surface. "It talks when you sleep," she muttered, voice distant. "It wears your voice. I didn't mean to say its name, Darren. I just wanted a story." She looked at him now, truly, her real self breaking through for a moment. "You have to burn this place, burn me." "No," he whispered, eyes burning. "There's still a way." Then came a sound, like a church bell being rung underwater. All the candlelight dimmed, the fog grew darker, and the thing in the center of the room began to split open. Inside the fog creature's chest, something unfurled, long insect-like limbs dragging across the floor like dead vines. Its torso opened like a mouth, and inside it, another body hung upside down. A priest, eyes sewn shut, mouth open in an eternal scream, a rusted cross driven through his chest. Rebecca gasped. "That's Father Remy, the last one who tried to stop it." The fog thing began to walk forward. Darren grabbed a rusted blade from one of the skeletal offerings and stood his ground. "You took my cousin," he said. "You think you're going to take me too?" The creature laughed, not out loud, in his mind. "You already came from me." Suddenly, everything made sense. Darren's dreams since childhood, the voices he heard in sleep, the strange way his mother never talked about her hometown. Ash Hollow was more than cursed. It was his birthplace. He was born here. The fog didn't follow him. It waited for him. "You were never supposed to leave," it whispered. "We let one child go. One child, to bring the rest back." Rebecca had only been the bait. The real vessel was him. "We let one child go." The words echoed in Darren's skull like they were being spoken inside his bones. The fog twisted tighter around his body now, not choking him, but cradling him, pulling him inward, toward the thing. He looked again at the twisted priest dangling from the creature's chest. His mouth was agape, but whispering, repeating something. Ad vesperum, redent ossa, Ad vesperum, at dusk, the bones return. At dusk. The altar began to glow from beneath. Veins of dim red light spread across the stone floor, tracing ancient patterns, runes of sacrifice. Each flicker hummed with a low, vibrating pulse, like a heartbeat buried under rock. Then the creature spoke again. "Come, Darren. Be reborn beneath the hollow. You are what remains of the offering." Rebecca screamed. Her skin had begun to tear in places, not bleeding, but leaking fog. "You have to fight it," she cried. "It lives in your name. Say it backwards. Shatter its memory." Darren dropped to his knees, clutching his head. He could feel something burrowing inside him. Thoughts that weren't his. Visions of people choking in bed, of children whispering to walls, of himself years ago, staring into fog on a childhood porch. He remembered now. He'd been to Ash Hollow before. A forgotten family vacation when he was 5. A stormy night. His parents yelling in the next room. And then, wandering outside. The fog had whispered his name back then too. He saw himself as a boy, staring up at the old Ash Hollow church as the bells rang, even though there was no priest inside. And he saw what came crawling from beneath the chapel. A figure with his own face, smiling, bleeding from the eyes. That was the night his family fled the town forever. That was the night he forgot. Until now. Darren stood. His hands were shaking, but he raised the rusted ceremonial blade. The fog recoiled slightly, as if it recognized the weapon. "You fed on my blood before," he said, "but now you bleed." He drove the blade downward, not into the creature, but into the floor. The veins of runes. The ground screamed, not cracked, not rumbled, screamed. Rebecca shrieked, her bindings snapping. The skeletons collapsed into piles of rot. The fog things howled and began to melt into vapor, but the creature, the hollow, did not die. It unfolded. Its chest peeled apart into wings of mist and bone, and from it emerged something older. A long, slithering form of bone and tar, covered in 1,000 eyes. It did not scream. It only breathed. And when it did, the entire chamber began to rise. The stone altar shattered. The walls of the underground church crumbled outward. Darren grabbed Rebecca's hand and pulled her to her feet. She stumbled but moved, her legs shaky, her voice low. "You cut the ritual too early. Now it's not bound, it's awake." "Then how do we kill it?" She looked at him with eyes no longer fog-clouded. "We can't, but we can trap it again. We just need to close the wound." "What wound?" She pointed downward. At the center of the room, now opening like a throat, was a bottomless black pit, pulsing with red. Darren stared into the pit. It wasn't just dark. It was alive. A blackness that pulsed like a wound in the earth, leaking fog instead of blood. Rebecca gripped his arm tightly, skin pale, trembling. The light from above had faded completely. Only the dull red glow below guided them now. "We go down," she said, "or it comes up." They climbed. Slowly, carefully. The walls of the pit were lined with roots, but they pulsed like veins. Darren touched one and recoiled. It was warm. The deeper they went, the less real the world felt. Time slipped. His thoughts blurred. The sound of their own breathing echoed unnaturally, like whispers were repeating it just a second later. And then they landed. A massive circular cavern, deep underground. The ceiling curved like the inside of a skull. Hundreds of figures were carved into the stone. Men, women, and children, all covering their eyes with their hands. In the center stood a monolith of black stone, and at its base, an altar of flesh, still beating. "This is where it started," Rebecca whispered. "Before the town, before the church, before names." Darren stepped toward the altar. Symbols written in blood circled its base. Old words, yet somehow he understood them, as if they'd been burned into his soul long ago. Then the voice came again, deeper this time. Not just fog, but the thing beneath even the fog. You are the son of forgetting, born in dusk, named by silence. You carry the key. A tendril of fog rose from the altar, curling around Darren's hand. It didn't burn, it didn't choke, it just held him. And in that moment he saw everything. The original sacrifice, a woman bound and buried alive, the fog born from her final breath, the town built above it, Ash Hollow, not to survive it, but to feed it. Generations of silence, generations of lies, until one child was allowed to leave. Him. Darren's mind was unraveling. Visions blurred over one another. Centuries of sacrifice. Children led into the fog. Names spoken backwards and buried in stone. All of it, feeding the hollow. And he? He wasn't just from Ash Hollow. He was made for it. His mother had once whispered to him, on a night he barely remembered. "We gave you his name so you'd be protected. But a name is a door, and someday something might open it." Now he understood. His name was the key. The tendrils of fog slithered over his arms, up to his throat, but not to kill him, to read him. They coiled over his skin like fingers pressing a book open. "You remember too much now," the voice said. "The fog cannot forgive memory." Behind him, Rebecca screamed. One of the foglings had returned, small, malformed, crawling on backwards limbs, wearing a child's bonnet stitched from leather. Darren lunged forward and slashed it with a piece of broken stone rune. It didn't bleed. It evaporated into laughter. "It doesn't matter," Rebecca cried. "Unless you speak the ceiling name, it will keep coming back. The Hollow isn't a monster, it's a story. You have to end it." "But how?" She pointed to the monolith. "Carve your name out. Unwrite yourself. If I do that, you'll vanish, but so will it." Darren stood before the monolith. His heart felt like it was being held still. Time slowed. The fog grew quieter, almost calm. He touched the black stone. His name appeared on it, glowing faintly in white. Darren Elijah Matthews, scratched into the rock like it had always been there. He felt the blade in his hand grow warm. Rebecca was crying now. "You were the one they let live. You're the one that can close it. And if I don't?" She didn't answer, because they both knew. If Darren didn't erase his name, the Hollow would walk again, through the world, through people, through every place the fog could reach. And eventually, the fog would learn to speak in everyone's voice. He raised the blade. It pulsed in time with his heartbeat. One cut, across the name. It screamed. The fog around the altar whipped into a frenzy, like a hurricane in reverse. The cavern began to collapse. Rebecca grabbed his arm, but he was already fading, his skin turning to mist, his memories unwinding like film reels set on fire. He looked at her one last time and smiled. "Tell them, the fog only wins if we forget." Then he was gone. The ground didn't just stop shaking, it stopped existing. Where the altar had been, there was now only dust. The monolith cracked straight down the middle. The pit sealed itself in silence. Rebecca stood in the empty cavern, eyes wide with shock. "Darren!" she called. But no answer came. She climbed out alone, and when she reached the surface, the fog was gone. Ash Hollow looked the same, but different. No rot on the buildings, no red veins in the concrete, no screaming windows. The town was silent, but now it was the right kind of silence, as if something old had finally gone to sleep. 3 days later, Rebecca stood outside a gas station just off Route 41. The news was full of weird reports. Strange fog patterns vanish across 3 counties. Cell towers reboot after unexplained blackout. Town of Ash Hollow re-added to Pennsylvania maps. But no one remembered Darren. Not her family, not the police, not even the house where he grew up. It was never there. His name had been unwritten. She looked in the mirror and found a note taped to her backpack in Darren's handwriting. Stories are stronger than monsters. As long as you tell it, it won't come back. She clutched it to her chest. But somewhere deep beneath the earth, far beneath the empty church, a single eye opened. Just one. No mouth, no words, just watching. Because stories don't die. They're only sealed until someone finds the name again. If you enjoyed this nightmare, like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.